Thanks for holding this important hearing. I'd just like to associate my comments again with Mr. Bartlett and Ms. Clark that Mr. Moore, I can appreciate when you see that influx of the jobs and the economic development that comes in with that, but then we have to look, and I don't know the life of these wells, if they're 15 years, 20 years, but I just have to guess that the company's not going to stick around and continue that investment when the gas is gone. And so we have to find that mix of leaving that land as pristine as possible so that we can protect those lands. And I've been blessed to be able to come to all of your states and enjoy those exact things that you do for a living, and I appreciate that and want to go back. Mr. Dvorak, that's close. You reacted when we were talking about the cost of the directional drilling versus the one hole, and you had a little reaction when we talked about it being more expensive. And I don't know if you'd like to elaborate on that. It was just kind of a nod and a smile, but are you seeing, and maybe Mr. Moore, tell me again the percentage that are doing directional, and then Mr. Dvorak, what you're seeing in that of the directional drilling we're doing, if you two could help me on that.
Well, I'm not in a position to know exactly what the costs of directional drilling, but I do know from what I hear from my company men, all the different companies that I deal with, it's a lot more expensive. But they do opt for the more expensive drilling to keep their footprint to a minimum and work from one pad just as long as they can.
And did you have a percentage earlier of how many you think are done directionally?
I think 80% of our wells are now done directional. I may be wrong on the exact
I think in Garfield County, where he refers to, there's only 8 rigs that can currently develop directionally. There's a finite number that they can actually do. So there's still a lot of straight downhole drilling because there's more of those kinds of drill rigs available. I think in the long run, a lot of the energy companies are finding that directionally drilling is actually more economical because they actually have one road in, they can put a pipeline in, a pipeline out. They don't have to have the pits that Chris is talking about where you have the toxic waste in the pits that either could overflow or animals can get into. So I think in the long run they're going to find that it's more economically to actually directionally drill. It's just that they have a limited number of those types of rigs out there right now, and there's more in production, so it's going to take a little bit of catch-up time. So there still is a lot of straight downhole drilling. And I guess just to your comment earlier and Ms. Clark's comment, I come from Sheridan, Wyoming. I've seen 4 boom and bust cycles in the course of my lifetime, primarily coal-based. I was based in Grand Junction, Colorado in 1982 on Black Sunday when Exxon pulled out of the Colony oil shale and watched that economy totally deteriorate. 2,200 jobs were lost overnight. It took that western slope of Colorado 10 years to recover from that. And they recovered by relying on their natural resources, on their lands that you could recreate on. Wyoming, where I'm from in Sheridan, always has gone back to being a ranching community at the end of each of those bust cycles. So again, it's the land that sort of sustains us, and it is the sustainability of that land that in the long run is what we need to protect. And again, nobody is against gas and oil exploration. All it needs is the balance that you're talking about, sir, that we can go in there and extract the resources from the earth and do so in a way that the other things can coexist with that.
And just as and thank you all very much. Madam Chair, as a final observation, in my brief time in this House, I know that the federal government creates these programs, BLM, for a reason. And I don't know what we'd look like if we didn't have, when the federal government steps in to make that balance and protect people's rights. But again, another federal agency that we create, and yet we're getting bad reports on it. When we call the leaders of these agencies in, they say, well, I either just got here in the last 9 months, that happened before my watch, or we're looking into that. And I've heard that in not just the Small Business Committee, but Armed Services Committee and Agriculture Committee. And I just keep looking at us and saying, if it's the administration, not the administration, if it's the bureaus problem, then shame on them. And if it's us not doing our job, then shame on us. And it's pervasive up here, is what we can say. I'm looking into that, or we're getting bad report cards on our agencies. I yield back.